I'm continuing my reading here. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am reading in a chronological order of events, not according to publication or volume, so I will be skipping around a little bit as I move along, especially when I get to the reign of the kings. But right now, this is still in Deuteronomy. We're getting towards the end. This will be chapter 30. Scattered Israel shall be gathered from all nations when they remember the covenant. Moses places life or death, blessing or cursing before the people. It's a pretty short chapter, so let's see what we got. And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee, and shalt return unto the Lord thy God, and shalt obey his voice, according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity, and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither the Lord thy God hath scattered thee. If any of thine be driven out unto the utmost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. And the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it. And he will do thee good, and multiply thee above thy fathers. And the Lord thy God will circumcise thine heart, and the heart of thy seed, to love the Lord thy God with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. And the Lord thy God will put all these curses upon thine enemies, and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. And thou shalt return, and obey the voice of the Lord, and do all his commandments, which I commanded thee this day. And the Lord thy God shall make thee plenteous in every work of thine hand, in the fruit of thy body, and in the fruit of thy cattle, and in the fruit of thy land for good. For the Lord will again rejoice over thee for good, as he rejoiced over thy fathers. If thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which are written in this book of the law. And if thou turn unto the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thine soul. So, again, this is saying what will happen in the future. In the previous chapters, we've had, if you turn against God, this is what you're going to have to suffer. And now God's saying, but as long as, whenever you return back to me, whenever you return to worship me as with full purpose of heart, then I will bring you back, and we will reestablish my covenant with you. We will reestablish it all. The blessings will be yours again. So even when they are scattered, what this tells us is that the covenant of God does not end. When he makes a covenant, it is eternal. And his covenant, the thing is, his covenant isn't just to bless you. His covenant is also to curse you if you go against him. That is part of his covenant with you. Our covenant is to obey him. And as part of his covenant to us is, if we obey, he will bless us. If he will not obey, he will curse us. That is, if he didn't curse us, he would not be holding up his end of the covenant. He has to, in order to maintain the covenant. The covenant, therefore, is eternal. Even the blessings, even the cursings, that's part of the covenant. And in the end, the Jews are brought back. Now, I will talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Let's just finish the chapter. We're about halfway through right now. So, verse 11. For this commandment, which I command thee this day, is not hidden from thee, neither is it far off. It is not in heaven, that thou shouldest say, Who shall go up for us to heaven, and bring it unto us, that we may hear it and do it? Neither is it beyond the sea, that thou shouldest say, Who shall go over the sea for us, and bring it unto us, that we may hear it and do it? But the word is very nigh unto thee, in thy mouth and in thy heart, that thou mayest do it. I like that too. That is, you don't need somebody else to come and tell you. once you have been given the gospel, once you have that witness of the gospel, you don't need somebody else to tell you. You have it. You're not seeking it anymore. Israel was given this covenant. Everybody in Israel was given this covenant. They all knew it. Verse 15. See, I have set before thee this day life and good, and death and evil. In that I command thee this day to love the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways, and to keep his commandments and his statutes and his judgments, that thou mayest live and multiply. And the Lord thy God shall bless thee in the land whither thou goest to possess it. But if thine heart turn away, so that thou wilt not hear, but shalt be drawn away and worship other gods and serve them, I denounce unto you this day that ye shall surely perish, and that ye shall not prolong your days upon the land whither thou passest over Jordan to go to possess it. I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live, that thou mayest love the Lord thy God, and that thou mayest obey his voice, and that thou mayest cleave unto him, for he is thy life and the length of thy days, that thou mayest dwell in the land which the Lord sware unto thy fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give them. So, again, we see this repetition that this is all part of the covenant. The covenant must include life and death. It must include blessing and cursing. It is only when God in blessing and cursing, God is fulfilling the covenant. It's like any law. You can't have a law saying, with any law, you have to have a prescription of the penalty for breaking it. If there is no penalty for breaking the law, it's not a law, it's just a suggestion. Therefore, the punishment is still part of the law. The cursings is still part of the covenant. Without the cursings, the covenant could not be. It could not even exist. And the covenant is we choose to be blessed or to be cursed. It is our choice, but we have to choose one or the other. So, but I did want to mention this. We see this being fulfilled, that God will bring Israel back, and we see it twice. And in the Book of Mormon, Jacob, he talks about this. There's a first gathering of Israel, and there will be a second gathering of Israel. And the first gathering happened at the time of Nehemiah and Ezra, 70 years after the Babylonian captivity, when the king of Persia allowed the Jews to return to Jerusalem. At that point, the Jews had turned back to God. They had repented. They had sought the Lord with full purpose of heart and soul, and God brought them back to their promised land. Now, they still served under the Persians. They weren't independent, and they still served under the Greeks. For a brief time, they managed to create an independent nation under the Maccabees, but it was only a fraction of the size of what it was originally, because they again turned away from God. Not enough of them had turned back to God, and those who had turned back began to fall away again, and there was a second scattering in the time of Rome. And today, we are seeing again a beginning of the gathering. First, in the gospel, in the preaching of the gospel, and the missionaries going out and gathering Israel back to the Lord. But we also see it in the establishment of the nation of Israel. God has said it is now time. The Jews, even though they do not have the true gospel, they do seek to serve the Lord with full purpose of heart and soul. They just do not yet know how to do it properly. But they are seeking him, and God is starting to bring them back to their promised land. Anyways, I will leave that one here, and I will see you in the next one.